Hey guys, today's profile review we're going to review is of a bronze player who is looking to climb into gold and eventually to diamond. So in under 15 minutes, I'm going to break down basically exactly what any bronze player needs to focus on, the three key areas, which is your champion pool and your role, your laning phase, and then your ability to team fight and get in team fights. These are the big three things that any player in bronze needs to learn in order to climb out of bronze. So it's going to be a 15-minute profile view. You're going to learn exactly what you need to do to climb out of bronze into silver, gold, eventually to platinum, and eventually to diamond. And before we get into the video, if you want your own profile review just like the one you're about to watch, please check out the links in the YouTube description below, as well as if you're interested in the monthly ranked climbing plan I talk about towards the end of this video. You can also book your free one-on-one live Discord call with me to understand what that would look like for you personally, for your rank situation and your rank goals. Let's get into the video. Profile review. So currently you are bronze 3 on the NA server, and your goal is to initially get to G1 and then eventually get to diamond. And I think G1 is a really good first goal for you to have. I honestly believe every bronze player can climb to silver and gold. I think every player can actually climb to gold. And I also believe every player can climb out of gold, so into platinum, which is about the top 8% of players at the moment. But I do believe everyone has the ability to do it, but only about 8%, 9% of players actually do it because they put in the effort, they put in the work, and they know what to improve. So in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to break down basically everything you need to do as an initial next steps in order to go from bronze to silver and silver to gold. And then I'll also tell you about how you can accelerate this. So if you're interested, at the end, I'm going to basically tell you how you can fast track your climbing from bronze to silver to gold to get you to that initial goal rank by the end of next season. So the three main things I want to focus on for this profile view, because I do not want to overwhelm you, and I think these are the biggest three things that bronze players, particularly mid laners and particularly players who it's their first season playing rank, struggle with. The first one is understanding what role or champions you want to play. The second one is your laning phase. And the third one is your team fighting. So in this profile view, we're going to go through all three of those for the typical bronze player and what a bronze player would need to improve, how much they'd need to improve in order to get to silver and eventually into gold. So the first one is your champion pool. Now, obviously, you're a new player and you're playing a lot of champions. I can see you play some Twitch bot lane, you play some Brand mid, you play some Swain, Mundo, Vex, Kale. We're playing a lot of champions, Irelia, Varus, Graves, and the list goes on. And so what I see you doing right now, Tyler, is basically getting a feel for the game, and that's completely fine. If you want to keep getting a feel for the game, that's fine. Just understand that that's not really going to help you climb in the short term. It's going to help you climb in the medium to long term. Generally, it takes a new player about 12 to 24 months with the strategy you're doing, where you're like testing and learning all these different champions. You're just like almost like a buffet. You're taking a little bit of everything and you're trying and seeing what you like and what you don't like. And just like in life, it's a great approach to learning something new and to developing and to becoming a better player. But if you want that accelerated climbing, because I can see you've got some ambitious goals here of getting to gold and diamond from bronze. If you want that kind of accelerated climbing, what you're going to have to do is really focus on one role, maining one role for like 90 to 100% of your games, and focusing on a really small champion pool. For you specifically, I would recommend probably like one tricking, so that you can just master one champion. And the benefits of mastering one champion are, one, you climb quicker, two, you enjoy the game more if you find a champion that you enjoy playing and you want to master them, and three, you're actually going to learn the lane really well. A lot of players think, oh, I should play multiple mid laners to learn the mid lane role. Well, no, that actually confuses the learning, and it makes a player have to think about way too many things, and you get overwhelmed. And particularly for new players, particularly for bronze players, it's a really bad way to learn because there's just too many variables, too many things you need to improve at once, and it's just overwhelming. So what I recommend for new players, and this is something that I've helped a lot of new players with who it's their first, second season climbing, is one trick, one champion, And while you're mastering that champion, you will also master and understand the fundamentals of mid lane, which you'll then be able to transfer to any other new champion you learn in the mid lane. And it's just going to accelerate that learning, accelerate that climbing, and help you get to that goal rank a lot faster, Tyler, as well as reduce frustration, poor performances, and inconsistency. Because when we're playing one champion on one role, we just get into the flow, we understand, we start identifying patterns, we start understanding what we're good at, what we're bad at, and it just makes the whole climbing journey a lot easier, Tyler. So that's my first recommendation. And look, if you're not sure, like, to be honest, I recommend Vex because I see her as your, like, most successful champion so far. I can see you've played 15 games on her with 53%. But also, you might not know what champion you want to one-trick now. I'm just using your data from your op.gg and your Mobalytics. But you could use a site such as u.gg. You can look up tier lists. And you could just go through what the highest win rate mid laners are. I'll give you an example. Or bot laners. It doesn't matter what role you choose. As long as you select one and commit to it, it's fine. We could look at the top mid laners in bronze. And we could see here that, Mordekaiser, Heimer, Garen, Set. These are all a bit weird, but I see you play a bit of Swain. I see you play a bit of Twitch, a bit of Brand as well. These are champions that you could play. Or you could continue playing Vex. I personally think Vex is a really good champion. And again, it doesn't really matter what role, Tyler, or what champion you play. As long as you're having fun and you feel like you can improve on that champion, that's all that matters. You can climb to any rank with any champion playing any role. As long as you're not like trying top lane Ivan, on hit or something. Like that's when it's going to be really difficult to climb. Still not impossible, but as long as you're playing like a mid laner in the mid lane and you're focusing on that, that role and that champion are never going to be the things holding you back. It's your ability to understand the game and to improve that is always going to be the limiting factor in your ability to climb. So don't ever blame your climbing on the role or the champion itself, because it is never those. There's a one trick in Challenger for every single champion in the game. So we can't use that as an excuse as to why we can't climb. Yes, you may have picked the wrong champion for your playstyle and your preference, and sure, then you're not going to perform on the champion, but that's not the champion's fault. That's just you don't want to play that champion, or you're not good at playing that champion, or you're just not playing that champion the way you're meant to play it. So cool, that's the first thing. And if you are really struggling to find a champion, once you watch this, reach out to me and I can help you find that champion that you want to play. And I can also recommend how you go about searching that and discovering that in, a shorter time frame than, let's say, like 6 months. We can actually accelerate that to, maybe a couple of months or a couple of weeks, depending on what your preferences are and what you're already starting to like. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is your laning phase. So once you figure out what role you want to play, Tyler, and what champions you want to play in order to climb out of bronze, the next thing you need to figure out is your laning phase. Laning phase is the fundamental thing in League of Legends that sets you up to win games, to carry games, to influence the game, and to just perform better overall. So if we can't win or do well in our laning phase and keep it consistent, we're going to struggle with every other phase of the game. League of Legends isn't like basketball. When one team scores, the whole game resets. It's more like chess. When you move a piece, that piece stays, in that location, or it gets removed, deleted, when it gets taken out. League of Legends is more like chess, where every single action you take has consequences until that game ends. So that's why we really need to focus on your laning phase, and we need to particularly focus on your laning phase for your profile specifically to get you out of bronze, because I can see here that your average goal difference at 15 minutes, yes, it's only over 29 games, so that's not a really good pool or sample size that we like to use, usually like 50, 100 games or so. But the fact that it's that far behind, so 1,500 gold, that is like 6 or 7 kills, basically. We need to figure out what's going wrong. So for bronze players, particularly mid laners, it's generally a combination of CS and kills, because they're really the only two things you get income from in the first 15 minutes of the game. Yes, turret plating's a little bit, but I don't want you to focus on turret platings too much, because if you're CSing well and you're getting kills or you're not dying too much, you will get turret platings naturally. So the big things are CS and kills, and this isn't only in relation to you, but it's in relation to your enemy mid laner or your enemy opponent, whatever role you choose. Because CSing, your CS per minute is just as important, or sorry, is the most important factor. And then your deaths in the first 15 minutes is really important, but also looking at the enemy CS and how many kills they're getting versus how many deaths you're having versus how many kills you're having is super important, because that will lead to these discrepancies, either deficits in your goal difference at 15 or positives or advantages in your goal difference at 15. So those are the big two things you'll need to focus on in your laning phase once you figure out your role and your champion pool is your CS, your kills, and your deaths. So don't worry too much about actually needing to get kills. For someone like you to climb out of bronze, Tyler, you're really going to need to focus on your CS per minute, because right now it's about 4.4. For a bronze player, I would like that up to about 5.5. Once you're in silver, I would want to be seeing that at around 5.5 to 6. And as you climb into gold, I want to be seeing that about the 7 to 8 CS per minute mark on champions like Vex. And obviously your CS per minute is dependent on the champions you're playing. But the champions I can see in your champion pool currently, the CS per minute needs to be higher. And then obviously your deaths are quite high. I can see that you're dying on average, 7.2 times a game. And we can also look at damage where you're only dealing 15% of your team's damage share, which is way too low. That should always also be up at around 25%, but I don't want to overwhelm you, Tyler, with too many concepts to focus on. So let's just keep it at laning phase and really focus on how you can increase your CS per minute and you can reduce your deaths in the first 15 minutes of the game. Those are the big two things you need to focus on. Now, the third thing I want you to look at, once you've figured out your champion pool and your role to climb out of bronze, and once you've figured out your laning phase to help you climb out of bronze, the third most important thing is your kill participation. Now, as we know, ranked solo queue, you're 1 in 10 players, which arguably gives you about a 10% influence on the game. So when we have a 10% influence, we need to make sure that we're using as much of that 10% influence that we can, because we want to win as many games as possible, and we want to have as much control over the outcome of the game as possible. Therefore, we need to get into more fights. We need to get more involved in team-orientated activities, whether that's Barons, Dragons, team fights, taking inhibitors, grouping mid. All these things are key factors in winning the game. So, looking at your current kill participation over your last 51 games, you have an average kill participation of 33%. And what that says to me is, it says to me that you're not grouping enough in the mid to late game. And this is a key concept that a lot of bronze players struggle with when they're trying to climb. And it's a key concept that a lot of silver and gold and even sometimes plat players struggle with. So if you can improve this key skill of understanding how to group more often, so basically, whenever your team's grouped, you should be there. You shouldn't be CSing. You shouldn't be in a side lane split pushing, particularly as champions like Vex, basically your entire champion pool are team fight orientated champions. And so you'll need to get into more team fights. So basically just group. If you see your team grouping, even if you think it's a bad idea, just group with them and help influence the outcome of that game. Because Tyler, I guarantee you influencing that fight is going to be way more impactful to the game other than whatever else you'd be doing, like split pushing bot lane or taking, your jungle camps. Like grouping in team fights is one of the most impactful things you can do as a solo queue player, as a mid laner. And once you improve your laning phase, your kill participation will naturally go up because you'll find yourself actually having more gold at 15 minutes. And therefore you'll be spending less time trying to catch up by catching side waves and taking jungle camps. And you'll be like, oh, I'm actually ready to team fight. I've got my items and I'm ready to fight. So see how all these three things link into each other. So your first thing, which is most important, is figuring out what role you want to play and that champion pool you want to play. Ideally, you're just one trick, Jeremy, to climb out of bronze. Then the second most important thing, and this is what all bronze players struggle with when trying to climb out of bronze into silver, is your laning phase, focusing on your CS per minute and your deaths. And then the third one is grouping, getting in as many kills and many fights as possible so you can exert your influence over the outcome of the game, whether you win or lose that game. I'll much rather you be the determining factor in whether you win or lose the game, rather than you just being on autopilot and letting the rest of the your teammates and the enemy decide the game outcome for you, because you're always in the side lanes, not interacting in any team fights or key moments like Barons and Dragons. So Tyler, that's a lot to focus on, and those three key things are the key for you to climb out of bronze. However, if you're looking at accelerating your journey, so you're like, oh shit, I don't know how to improve my CS per minute. I don't even know where to begin with limiting my deaths. I don't know how to improve my laning phase. I don't know what champions or role I want to play in. Oh, I don't even know how to group more. Like, when do I leave bot lane or when do I leave mid lane to go to a fight at Rift Herald? These concepts are daunting, particularly for new players. So what I'd like to offer you is a free call to talk about what a monthly coaching plan could look like for you. And basically what this is it's the way I've helped hundreds of players climb from whatever current rank they are to their goal rank. So bronze players to gold players to diamond players, plat players to master players. I've helped at all ranks, helping players get to their goal ranks. And basically what I do is each month we work on the most important thing for you to improve. And we keep working on it until it's at a good state. It's at a level where we're comfortable with and we're actually able to win more games. And then we move on to the next problem. And basically we go through every single weakness you have one by one in your ranked solo queue. And we break it down. I show you exactly how to fix it through game reviewing, statistic tracking, and goal setting. And then each month we just come back, find the next problem. And we're basically just removing every single hurdle you have in order to go from bronze to silver to gold to platinum and eventually to your end goal of diamond. So Tyler, if that sounds like something you're interested in, once you've watched this profile review, please reach out to me and we can talk about that. Book a free call with me and I can walk you through exactly what that would look like for your current situation. As well as if you're having any problems figuring out your champion pool or figuring out what role you want to play as well, please DM me and we can help fix that. Anyways, mate, I hope you enjoyed this profile review. I hope you learned a lot from it and cheers. Good luck on the Rift and don't forget to message me once you've watched this.